So it's Foundations, Week 14, Cycle 2, and your student just learned that Clemenceau led France during World War I. And you probably didn't know who Clemenceau was, nor did your student, and probably still don't know. Probably you know one fact about him, that he led France during World War I. And you're probably wondering, who cares? Why does it matter? He's not even one of the people you usually talk about when you talk about the world wars. But it does matter. Because in 4 years, when your student is sitting in a challenge seminar and they're debating the Treaty of Versailles, your student's going to need to make an argument as to whether or not the Treaty of Versailles caused World War II. And you literally cannot make that argument without knowing who he is. And so it's something I want to call a peg that you're going to put into your child's life, into their memory, so that later when they're needing to learn information, they have something to attach it to. And speaking of pegs, there's a lot of them this week, and I'd like to go through them. This week, your student learned about linear measurements. They learned that 5,280 feet equals a mile, and they learned that 2.54 centimeters is an inch. These are things they'll interact with all of the time. They may not go and pace out a mile today, but they will at least know the difference between a foot and a mile. They'll learn that 1 is always 1, but 1 is not always 1. A sort of a nuanced idea that only becomes clear when you understand the unit at the end of the number makes all the difference in the world as to what the number actually means. And that's the same for anything you deal with in life. These are the sorts of pegs that they can pick up and immediately use. Another one is in science. We're dealing with the states of matter, liquid, solid, gas, plasma. Your kid will observe those today. They'll see it when they put the water in the ice tray into the freezer, and then they freeze, the water turns into ice, you put it back in the water, it melts, and then when you put it on the stove, it turns into steam, which isn't gas, but bears a lot of the same properties. So we're starting to see your child understanding the states of matter immediately. This is a peg they can start to build on in everything they do in life. But some of them, the later ones, the ones we're going to get into, are a little stranger. They're not as easy to understand, but they are equally important, and I'd like to tell you why. 5 names: Clemenceau, Lloyd George, Nicholas II, Wilhelm II, and Wilson. Right now, just names, but in just a few years, when your kids get into the high school ages of challenge, those names start to become real characters, real people, real decision makers that shaped World War I and all of the events after. That's exactly the point I want to stress here, that we teach the thing not because it itself has intrinsic value, but because of its connection to the other things. Grammar is just that, grammar. You can teach a word without knowing what it means, but knowing what the word means requires knowing the word. And so as your kids get into Challenge 1 and they're starting to understand the consequences of action, those characters start to come to life and they realize the actual importance of their decisions. When they get into Challenge 3 and they read through a patriot's history of the United States, suddenly they have the framework they need to build off of for all of the other events that they discuss in Western history. And that's it. That's what I want you to take away. It's hard to discuss whether Versailles Treaty caused World War II if you're still Googling Versailles. We need to put these pegs in place so that when your student is ready to build upon them, they have something to string the threads through. Also this week in Foundations, your student will be studying the Baltic countries: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Belarus. Those 5 countries are just names at this point, but it's hard to learn about the countries, again, if you don't know their names. And so, once again, we're setting a peg that will be picked up later when it matters. We're halfway there. 4 subjects left to cover this week: art history, English grammar, Latin, and of course, our timeline. I'm going to spare you most of my spiel about English grammar, why adverbs are important, or why you should learn about Gainsborough, or why the Latin endings are going to help tremendously when you get into the later years in Challenge, particularly in Challenge 3, when you start to study Roman history and about the Gallic Wars. I'm going to spare you that for now. But what I want to get into is precisely the same point I've been making this whole video. Let's tie a bow on this thread. The timeline. You know why we're doing it, and you understand it. We're learning about Columbus, we're learning about the Reformation, we're learning about the Baroque period of the arts. Right now, they're just words. Your kid doesn't know what Baroque means unless you've already explained it, but that's okay. This year, maybe you just teach them Columbus sails to the Caribbean. But next year, maybe you read the back of the card. And maybe the year after that, they're writing a research paper about it, not because it's assigned, but because they themselves are genuinely curious. That's it. We're trying to spur curiosity. We're trying to give them things to be curious about. And so remember, learning is a lifestyle. Be an everyday educator. If you're curious how the Foundations program ties into our challenge program, either implicitly or explicitly, go ahead and check the notification bell and you'll be notified about our next video. Next week, we'll be doing the same thing, looking at week 15 of Foundations, cycle 2, and answering the questions that you probably have. And if we don't, always feel free to leave a comment and we'll try to give you our best answer. Until next time.